And welcome to another podcast of the Saints Martini with myself, Warren the Saint, and of course, Irish the Halo. How are you today, Irish?
I am doing pretty well, actually. This has been a weird week, but yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing interestingly. Went back to work.
Interestingly.
Well, I went back to work this week,
Yikes.
and after the weekend, okay, back at work,
Yes.
to find that Australia is going into another lockdown again. Well, at least parts of Australia anyway. And we're talking a really serious lockdown because they had 200 odd cases of COVID-19. And it's put the government into
200.
meltdown, 200 cases. Mind you, there's only, I think, 5 people in hospital. The rest are all at home. Okay, they're not... All right, so to put it into perspective, okay. And the reason why, I think we spoke last week, 100,000 tests in 10 days, they discovered a lot of cases, right? The more you test, the more you get.
Yeah.
So it's put them into a bit of a shock because they weren't expecting 200 odd. So we've got lockdowns running again, and they're taking it very seriously. In fact, my daughter's partner was pulled over by the police on Thursday for a mandatory COVID-19 test.
Holy crap, really?
Driving down the road, police pulled him over, walked up to the window, mandatory COVID-19 test, sir.
My God.
And he was given 2 options. Take the test now, or they take your details and then it's passed on to, like, the government for the police to put you into 3-week quarantine. So you've got a choice. 3-week quarantine or take the test.
Take the test. Or, holy shit.
Okay. So, he's a responsible guy because my daughter's a casualty nurse, all right? So he's not an idiot.
Sure, yeah.
All right. So he, of course, took the test. But he said, one thing he did say, but this is the 3rd test that he's had, and he said the difference between it being given to you by a police officer and by a nurse.
Lord.
Wow. Okay. He said, Lordy. He said he's had it done twice by nurses. He said it's uncomfortable, but it's fine. He goes, done by a police officer, came out with a blood nose.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he said the police are really right. He said the problem is, in fact, my daughter was actually saying this. She said the problem is the police are like given 1 hour's instruction on how to do it. They're not health professionals, right?
Yeah, so, that's what they're doing here for like their entire training. So
yeah. So okay.
I'm sorry.
So the problem, so the problem is they're really, really rough, when they do it. And of course now we're even at the stage where we've now got police knocking on your door. So. Good afternoon. We're here to do the mandatory COVID test. And if you don't take the test, they put your house into quarantine for 3 weeks.
Holy shit! Okay.
So I don't know how that would go down in America.
Well, let me just say that my state, Florida, yesterday alone had 10,000 positive tests.
Wow. Okay.
New people tested that have COVID for sure. That, of course, doesn't include the people who've been standing in line since midnight and couldn't get a test. Because here in Orange County, the Orlando area, you can get tests. If you have to go to the hospital, you might be able to get one if you fit the symptoms. But you can also get in line starting just after midnight, basically, if you want to hope to get a test, at the convention center in the heat where people are trying to stand 6 feet apart, well, at least some of them, for hours. And usually the tests run out around noon. So they have a number of set daily amount that they can do. And we have had 10,000 cases, and we were 10,000 cases above, like, totally for our entire state that they've actually said is positive. We were like 10,000 above the next highest state, which was, I think, Texas or something. Can't remember now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and our governor is still saying, oh, well, we don't want to make people wear masks. So he's leaving it up to, like, mayors. And Orange County now has a mandatory mask law, but they are not law, but they're saying you have to wear one, and but they're not enforcing it. So I can't tell you. I ran to the grocery store today, and there were probably 50 people in just one tiny small area, and maybe 20 of them weren't wearing masks. So I, got through there as quickly as I could. Came home and took a shower and burned my clothing. Sorry. I just think the reason, it's so stupid. People are so ignorant in our country. And not everybody, but the majority of them are just fucking ignorant. And so it's just breaking out all over the place. People are going to church and they're singing in choirs and they're doing all these things, going to Trump rallies and not wearing masks. And now Tulsa is having a huge outbreak from where he had his last rally. Maybe that's the last one.
It's unbelievable. I mean, in Australia they're talking about no travel until middle of 2021.
Well, we're banned from traveling anywhere, and we can't get a passport even if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So,
you can get you can leave the country.
No. No, we can't get passports now.
Oh,
they're not issuing any passports right now to American citizens. So if you don't already have one, you cannot go. But you can't go to the EU. But so you can go other places that haven't banned us completely yet. But people are streaming into Ireland because they can't get into the EU now. So it's like kind of weird.
And Ireland is the EU, isn't it?
Well, part of it is.
Or the South is, yeah.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? Yeah, because you can come to Australia still, but when you arrive, that's if you can get a flight, because there's so few flights, but if you can get a flight, when you arrive in Australia, you automatically go into 3 weeks quarantine. So if you were coming to do a business deal, you've got to wait 3 weeks before you can meet the people you're going to meet. So yes,
who has enough money to do that?
Well, I know, but I suppose the whole idea of, let's say that you were, let's say you were not an Australian, but you had a job in Australia and you'd been caught overseas. You now needed to come back to take over your position for the next 18 months. You can still come back, but you have to go into quarantine for 3 weeks before you could take that position up. That's all. So, and I think that's fair enough. I don't have a problem with that. So.
As long as people can afford to live for 3 weeks without, working. So, it can't happen for everybody.
I would argue that these people are generally working in huge multinationals. I think they can.
Well, if you're traveling like that, for sure.
Yeah. So. Foreign students.
So rich people can do it, is what you're saying.
Well, basically, yes. Yes, is basically what I'm saying.
Oh, what a shock! Rich people can do stuff.
I know. But I was also, just before we bring up some talking points, I was going to tell you a story during the week which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Oh. Okay, now.
Okay, I thought it was maybe the one you told me about your daughter's partner. So no. Good. I'm glad it's another story. Cool.
No, this is a funny one rather than an interesting one. I was in the office, okay, and there's nobody in the office. Just everyone's working from home. All right, so I'm literally just there by myself, right? And there was one other guy there, and so I was listening to some music because there's no one to annoy. All right, so I was listening to music, and anyway, and I'm listening to Puccini. Okay, and so a bit of opera, playing out.
I love opera,
and yes, I know, and anyway, a good friend of mine, and he came up and says, "What are you listening to?" And I said, "A bit of Puccini, a bit of class, a bit of style," and he goes, "Oh, for God's sake!" And then he grabbed his phone, right, and you know how you got Siri, okay, on your iPhone, right, and he goes, "Siri, play something better than Puccini," okay. And do you know what Siri said back? Said,
"What?
Unfortunately, I cannot find anything better than Puccini." And we both just fucking broke into hysterics.
That's awesome.
I understand what Siri was actually saying was, I can't comply with the
Search
request
for something,
because I don't understand the boundaries of it. But the way it came across was, there is nothing better than Puccini. It was just absolutely.
You don't know that's not what she meant.
It was absolutely hilarious. I thought that was very funny.
That is funny, actually.
Dear. But anyway, it is cocktails and conversation, of course.
Yes.
I was meant to mention that 10 minutes ago, but
I'm not drinking wine today, so that's.
Okay. Are you drinking vodka?
No, I am not, but I am drinking a martini, but gin,
Oh,
not vodka, obviously.
it's
Stirred for 10
well.
seconds while glancing at an unopened bottle of vermouth.
You're going down the what's the movie? The Kingsman.
Kingsman. It's a
Yeah.
Kingsman martini. Absolutely. It's even made with the number 3 London dry gin. So
There you go. See,
I thought if I was going to do it, let's do it for something fun.
so it's very interesting. So you drink the Kingsman martini, I drink the Bond martini. So that's very interesting, you know. Although one day we should actually, for the show, do Vespers. Because it's gin and vodka in a martini. You
Oh, I
combine
see.
the
Well,
two.
vodka does things to me.
Mm.
So I have to be careful.
All right, we probably won't then, if that's the case. But anyway. So, but yes, look, the true martini is, of course, the gin martini.
Of course.
But you know, there are now more than one style of martini, and you say, like, who would have thought in the 1950s there was this thing going to come out called the espresso martini? You know, with Kahlua vodka and espresso coffee. You know,
I like a cotton candy
Oh yes.
martini because and it's cheesy from a restaurant, but I liked it because I like sweet things. And they literally put cotton candy in it and then pour the liquor
wow.
over it so it melts down into the glass, which is amazing. It tastes just like cotton candy then.
Well, I know that there are some bars, you know, they're very expensive drinks where they actually put gold leaf into your
I
martini.
don't want to eat gold. I mean, I used to take some shots of Goldschlager, and then I thought, this is ridiculous. Why am I wasting this way?
Well, I think these are for people who, you know, are so wealthy they don't mind blowing $1,000 on a martini.
Well, then they're assholes.
I kind of agree with that, to be honest. I agree.
I don't get the fad to gold leaf a cheeseburger and stuff like that. I just think what a decadent waste of money for no reason. Just because you could, because you can afford it. I think maybe you should do something better with that, than spend it on a cheeseburger flaked in gold.
I absolutely agree. But there's a couple of two big stories going around, I suppose. One, it's 4th of July weekend, isn't it, for Americans?
It is.
Independence Day, and of course the breaking news over the week of Vladimir Putin doing some nasty business in Afghanistan, and the fact that the United States government knew about it and didn't do anything about it. So it's an interesting thing. But before we get to that slightly more serious story, 4th of July, for non-Americans, Irish, we know it's the Independence Day. It's the day that the United States became a country and broke from Britain. But that's about all people really know who aren't American. Is there stuff that, we should know as non-Americans, to make us understand America a little bit better? Like what is Independence Day? What do you guys do on the day? Do you have special meals you eat, special activities you undertake? Like, I know in Australia Day, there are must-do things that every Australian has to do. And I'm just wondering, is it the same in the United States?
Well, I mean, they're not must-do things specifically, but most people do some sort of grilling or outdoor cooking, usually hot dogs and hamburgers, things like that. Some people, it's the majority of people. I know that's the majority of people, especially today, because when I went to the store, there were no hamburger buns and no hot dog buns, and there was only ground round meat instead of like the chuck, because everybody uses that for burgers. And I mean, you could just tell because things were cleaned off the shelves. And then usually some people go to see big firework displays, which that means you're going to go early in the day and stand around in a crowd so you can maybe find a space to get crammed up next to people. So most of our public displays are canceled this year because of COVID, because things are still going so badly.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Some people will probably stay home. Some do anyway. They might do some cookouts with some family members or things like that are small. It's a lot. And, a lot of people break the flag code, which is great because They're wearing shorts with the flag on them and bathing suits with the flag on them and all these things, which you're not supposed to do. But we've noticed that people, especially people who vote Republican and on the right wing, they really, really love to have a flag on their ass. And I just don't really get that. But, whatever, man. I just, I mean, you light sparklers and you shoot off fireworks and, there's a boy in my house. He wants to go buy fireworks. Now here in Orange County, you can't buy the big fireworks. You can't buy good ones. You can only buy like bottle rockets and sparklers and those little snap pops and some other little tiny things. He wants me to drive him over to Cocoa Beach where you can buy like the big M80 skyrockets. It's like, we're not doing that.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. One, because they're ridiculous, and two, because you can't bring them back to a subdivision and shoot them off over your pool. It's really stupid. Yeah. So, this year I'm not feeling much like celebrating. So what I've decided I'm going to do, I'm going to watch Hamilton tonight, later on, with my mom because it's coming on Disney.
Yep.
And it's a recording of the actual stage presentation. So they didn't do a movie. I'm glad to just see the stage presentation. And then, tomorrow, I think we're going to eat enchiladas tonight. So, and tomorrow, going to eat some chili or something, and that's about it. We're not doing anything special. We might grill some steaks.
Okay.
But we're not letting anybody come over. So we're just going to hang out at home, and we're not really celebrating per se. There's a lot going on right now that I don't feel super patriotic about.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I'm never going to turn down steaks or something.
Well, look,
or enchiladas.
I understand. My daughter stopped celebrating Australia Day about 5-6 years ago. She refuses to celebrate it until they change the date. So she says once they change the date, she'll celebrate again. Until they change the date, she refuses to celebrate. She refers to it as Invasion Day. There are a number of people who, in Australia, the nation's quite divided on this about changing the date. And who knows? Who knows what the future will bring? But...
Yeah, I feel that way, and most people in our country do about Columbus Day. Now, we want it changed to Indigenous Peoples Day, but they still celebrate Columbus Day, which is gross.
Yeah, he was a pretty nasty guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he was a pretty nasty piece of work, actually. I'm not too... Yeah. Well, actually, it brings up another subject. Actually, we were talking about this idea of statues are coming down. All around the world. It's not just in America. The Black Lives Matter movement, has inspired people. But the other thing too is that this, the idea of statues being inappropriate coming. I mean, this has been going for years. This is not brand new.
I know.
Yeah, and but I thought what would be interesting to maybe chat about is not in cocktails and conversation over a martini is not so much whether these statues should come down, because I think you and I both agree that the horrible ones have to come down. You know what I mean? If you've got a statue to someone who was a slave owner, you kind of need to take the statue down.
I think here in America we have to accept that that's going to include people like George Washington. Yeah, he and his wife actually owned 300 slaves.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
So if that's the case, then but especially here, the Confederate people. Like, okay, so they put up the monuments and the statues to the Confederate leaders, which are seditionists who, wanted to break away from the United States. They did it like a decade or so started doing it then, like after the Civil War. And it was a way to, after slaves were actually freed, it was a way to keep them intimidated. And a lot of them were put up by Daughters of the Revolution, I think they're called.
Right.
And they literally are women who are descended from Confederate soldiers, and I think it was them, not the Revolution, because it's Daughters of the Revolution, which were revolutionary soldiers. It's like Daughters of the Confederacy or something. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So they were like a club, and they would go around and raise money to put up statues to Confederate, what they called heroes, and I say that with air quotes and gagging. I noticed it when I was younger. And like 5 years ago, I took my son to Asheville, North Carolina for the first time, which is a fantastic area. It's beautiful there. But we'd go around in these small towns, and right in their town center in the middle, and they literally had one stoplight in this town. Right in the middle of it was this, like almost everywhere were these massive statues to Confederate generals and things like that. And I didn't understand that at all, because I thought, what the hell is this still doing up here? These people were traitors to the United States, but still now they're the central focus point of this entire town. How can these people, one, not see how awful that is? And two, if they don't see how awful it is, can't they see how awful they are?
Yes,
and I was literally sickened by a beautiful natural place being ruined with what was just a leftover residual hatred and wanting to make Black people feel intimidated, even though they were free. It was just like a continuation of more Jim Crow laws, and yeah, they need to come down. They all need to come down.
See, it's an interesting point, because even in other countries, like let's say that we go to Germany, for argument's sake. Now, there are some people from the Second World War who are viewed almost as kind of heroes within Germany, although I would imagine this has been very highly questioned these days. But, at least when I grew up, right, were members of Germany in the Second World War. People like Erwin Rommel, people like Ronstadt, General von Ronstadt, okay. Because these men were not Nazis. They were high-ranking Germans, and in fact, they did fight Hitler on numerous occasions. However, horrendous acts were carried out under their commands. So, are they guilty by association? Look, this would take us hours to argue out. But the thing is that, for instance, Germany in the 1970s named a warship after Erwin Rommel. It's an interesting concept. For instance, Germans are today allowed to, well, there's none of them left alive anymore, but post-1955, any German soldiers from the Second World War who were in the Bundeswehr, the modern German army, were allowed to wear their World War II decorations, providing they were denazified. In other words, what you did was you went to the government, and the government reissued your medals with all the swastikas removed. Now, this is an interesting comment. Is that horrific? Is that wrong? I don't know. These are interesting topics that maybe I'm too small in society to honestly make a decision on. It's like, I don't know. It's like I'll just say one more thing. At Christmas time. Yeah. At Christmas time, the Dutch still to this day wear blackface to celebrate, Black Pete, right? Who runs around. I understand. And
I understand their culture is different with that. They're not like the minstrel performers here in America. No. Here, I can understand if you had minstrel performers in your country. And that to me is the problem of blackface. Yeah. I mean, I understand they have a character, but I don't know enough about the history of that character to understand why they do it, who he was. So, I mean, honestly, I probably should look into it more before I comment.
He was a slave.
Oh.
He was a slave. He was the equivalent of. So you've got St. Nicholas, if you like. He's not actually called St. Nicholas. I'm not Dutch, so I can't tell you exactly. But the equivalent of Santa Claus, right? Okay, the Dutch equivalent. Okay. And he has an assistant in Holland, and the assistant is Black Pete. Black Pete is his slave boy. He is literally a black boy who is a slave. An African-American boy taken from Africa.
Where did this come from? Like, what time period did this happen? Like
1700s, it probably started. When at the time of imperial conquest of Africa, around basically when
colonialism, and then it needs to go. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. That's straight up just. I thought maybe they were, honoring somebody in a way, but not really.
No. Well, I suppose
they're not.
They're honouring a tradition, but the tradition is based on imperialist slavery. So
Yeah. Well, and NASCAR, they used to honor a tradition by waving around Confederate flags, but they're not going to do that anymore, at least. So NASCAR finally said, "Nope,
they've stopped that, have they?
Confederate flags are banned." Yeah.
So what about the Dukes of Hazzard? I've done a really interesting question to ask you about this. Are you, because I've heard that networks around the world are removing shows that have really offensive episodes, blackface episodes, really racist episodes, things along these lines. The entire Dukes of Hazzard, although it's my memory of it, well, I was about to say there were probably no black people actually in Dukes of Hazzard now to think about it. I
don't remember, but probably not. Maybe one or two. I don't know. But they were like day players. So.
But we have the General Lee with a Confederate flag painted on the top. Now, now it's interesting when they made the movie in the early thousands, when they redid the movie, they actually played up with that, and they actually said they had people honking their horns at them saying, "Rednecks, go home, racist." So they did actually deal with it, I remember, in the movie. But should that show be banned?
Well, I think whatever channel decides to air it, if they decide to, they should air it with a disclaimer in the front. But honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. In that time period, when that show was big, I was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a couple of years ahead. But it's much the same,
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't really understand because my parents, they weren't in any way racist. We hung out with people of all kinds. My dad was a musician. I remember my first experience with somebody who was racist at 6 years old in a department store, which I think I told you about, and whispering to me not to put on the hats that the black ladies tried on.
Yes.
Because I thought like the Sunday style hats. I was shocked, and my mother was appalled, and she, ended up yelling at the lady, which is great. And, but I didn't grow up in an era where we talked about the Confederacy because that just wasn't something that was on my parents' radar at all. So nobody was talking to me at all about what the symbol of the General Lee was. At that age, I didn't even know who the hell General Lee was. And I didn't really know anything about the Confederate flag except that it was something that I saw a lot when we went down south. And so I loved the show, honestly. And I think I posted something about this on Facebook or something one day about how I really loved me some Luke Duke. Okay, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I didn't like Bo. I thought he was an asshole and just like weird, cute blonde. I liked the dark-haired guy because he seemed more deep. But
if you ever noticed... Yeah, I'll tell. Keep going. Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, I was just going to say my idea is instead of the General Lee, maybe if they're going to update the show at any point, they paint it blue and call it the General Grant, and they put an American flag on the top. That's all I'm saying.
That's interesting.
General Grant.
Oh, yeah. I know who General Grant was.
Yeah, of course you do.
He was
history buff.
Well, in many ways, it could be argued that he was actually a better general than Lee anyway. One, he hit Lee's ass, but it's actually a bit more complicated than that. If you really want to get into the depths of history, Lee was a better battlefield commander. In other words, in the actual fight, he was better. But the thing about Grant had a long-term strategy. Lee fought battle to battle, where Grant fought a campaign. They were very different in their styles. And the thing was, Lee would have been better in the Napoleonic era, right? Grant was better in the American Civil War era because wars were no longer decided in a single battle. They were now decided over... And that's where Grant excelled. The whole idea was... I still remember, I think it was said by Sheridan, who... I know a lot of people say Sheridan was a horrendous man, and I'm not going to argue that. From what I gather, he was a bit of an arsehole. Look what he did to the Native Americans. He was an arsehole.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
However, he and Grant apparently were very good friends, and I think Sheridan made the comment about Grant. He said, the thing I respect so much about General Grant, he said that Grant is never concerned about what is over the next hill, but it personally terrifies me. Grant is able to put it out of his mind. In other words, Grant is a long-term thinker. He's not a short-term thinker, where all the generals of the Civil War were short-term thinkers. And that's what made Grant stand out and, in the end, become the amazing general that he was for that war. However, from everything I've heard, Grant was still a bit of a prick. He wasn't exactly the nicest man on earth, but
yeah, I don't think any of them were the nicest people. They were doing what they did.
It's also 1860. Yeah. The 1860s, no men were nice back then. They were all assholes to a degree. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they were misogynist, racist. Right? Even if you didn't own slaves, there's a very good chance they were still racist as fuck. I
agree with that. I went to high school and college in Tennessee, in the Nashville area, and Murfreesboro. Stones River Battlefield was right in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where my college was, basically. I found out, because I love genealogy, I found out that one of my ancestors died at Stones River Battlefield. And they had fought for the Confederacy, and I was horrified because I thought, oh my God, these people maybe owned slaves or whatever. So I did more research on them, and I was proud to say that maybe he was a racist, but at least they were poor dirt farmers and did not have any slaves because they couldn't afford them. So at least I felt, a little better about that. But one of the trips I took back there recently, I went and did some touring of different homes in the area in Nashville that are still standing from that time period. And one of the guys that was giving the tour, he was an archaeology student and was doing it, for part-time things. It was before the COVID thing happened. I think it was his last trip. And he was able to start talking to us about the different battlefields that had happened in the area that were related to people from the home, and showing us maps that showed us where battles had happened directly in places, where the roads were now in different places. And I had actually lived in a place that was at the top of a hill that they had made one of their biggest runs in now. And I can't remember the name of it because I've had too many martinis. But that's all right. I will find it. And it was actually super cool, the whole history lesson and everything. But to think about just a couple, 100 years ago, a little more than that, 150 or so, we had people in our own country fighting against each other so that some people could keep other people in slavery is abhorrent to me. Yeah. And it was really kind of a shocking realization when I saw the battle plans and the way they ran up this hill. And this was a place where I had lived, and I had never known that things like that took place basically on the soil where my apartment was built. And it was kind of weird.
Well, I don't know if the place is Sharpsville. Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. There was a famous battle between Confederacy and the United States, and of which case, at one stage, you had two regiments facing each other down. All right, so you've got one fighting to free the slaves, one fighting to keep the slaves. Every member of every regiment, with the exception of the officers, were Irish.
Interesting.
And the whole concept, you imagine it. You've got two regiments of Irish fighting over American slavery. Sometimes these stories come out of history where you just have to go, wow, that's unbelievable.
Have you ever seen the movie Glory?
Oh my God! Glory is not. If no one has seen Glory, see it. Track it down. It's amazing.
It's
with Matthew Broderick.
So great.
Yeah, yes. And
Morgan Freeman is
Morgan
in it.
Freeman,
and so many great people.
And who's the real rebellious one who ends up then in the end carrying the flag?
Oh my God, I can't remember now.
Oh my God, he's so famous. He's so famous.
I know. I'm gonna look it up, but give me a second here. Talk about something else. I'm gonna find it.
Anyway, but yes, but look, if you haven't seen Glory, it deals with, I think it's the 54th Massachusetts Regiment.
Denzel Washington,
yes.
Yes, sorry.
And there are also a number of very well-known actors who weren't
Oh my
actually all
gosh,
that well
so
known at
many.
the time when it was made. Like they're more famous now, but they weren't all that famous when the movie was made. Oh, are you still there? We're just going to pause for a second, and we're going to be right back. Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties with the connection. These things happen if, well, one, you're in lockdown, and two, you live on the other side of the fucking world.
It does. That is a long connection from here to Australia.
As your president has said, we're one of the shithole countries, So,
yeah.
Actually, I don't think that's true. I don't think he described us as a shithole country.
Because you guys have a lot of white people there. You're fine.
Oh, we're majority white, so we're okay. Yeah, I know. So we're safe. We're safe, No, actually, I think he quite likes us.
Awful.
I think he likes us, actually, to be honest. I don't...
I'm not sure because your prime minister was the one who dropped the dime on him.
But he's not prime minister anymore. He was rolled in a coup, so he's gone now.
That's right.
We've got ScoMo now, or Scott Morrison. We call him ScoMo, or Stoddy from Marketing is the other name we give him. So we treat our prime ministers with great respect in this country, and don't worry, even the people that love him call him ScoMo. So don't worry. It's just Australia. It's the way it is,
No, it was just the marketing comment that got me.
Oh, Stoddy from Marketing. Yeah, I love that. I know. Yeah. So it's a great name. It's actually a hashtag on Twitter. You actually you type in Stoddy from Marketing, and it's all about the Australian Prime Minister. It's great.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but yes. Anyway, I think it was the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. The story of the birth of the regiment, which was the first all-black, except for officers, all-black regiment in the American Army ever. And I think, and I stand to be corrected, except for maybe... were Buffalo Soldiers pre this in the Indian Wars, or I don't know?
I believe they were. They were.
All right. So,
but Buffalo Soldiers weren't per se necessarily an actual military unit.
They weren't a unit as such.
Were they?
Well, I don't know. I don't know enough about American history. Is my problem? I'm not an American. You know what I mean? So but anyway, but in regards to
they were. I'm wrong about that. They were the 10th Cavalry Regiment.
Right.
Of the United States Army. So that's my fault. Yeah, I didn't realize that. They were a cavalry unit.
Yes.
But they were given that nickname, the Buffalo Soldiers, by Native American tribes who fought in the Indian Wars. So, yeah.
So yes, there were black soldiers in the American Army previous. However, but this was a little bit different. This was a full-on regiment, first ever full regiment, in my understanding, in the Civil War, who, of course, the Confederacy listed them as criminals to be executed.
Escaped slaves, I think.
Yeah, so they would. My understanding is they would either be, if captured, they would be put back into slavery or executed. Oh, sorry, the officers would be executed and they would be put back into slavery. That's right.
I think I remember.
Yeah, so so anyone who served in this regiment, that's a big risk, It's a bit like British commandos in the Second World War, where Adolf Hitler said anyone wearing the commando uniform would be executed. You're taking quite a risk, and it tells the story of their early days through the Civil War. It's an amazing movie. It's very, very moving, very, very powerful.
So good.
It doesn't only just deal with, I suppose, the difference between race. It also deals with the difference in class. I've ranted too much. You need to talk.
No.
It's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful movie. And if you haven't seen it, get it. Find it. It's on iTunes. It's out there. Just get it. Glory.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I saw, speaking on that about, black soldiers in our military units, I saw something not long ago on Tales of the Abandoned or Mysteries of the Abandoned, which is a show here on Discovery Network or something that talks about the history of abandoned buildings. And there's a place in Illinois outside of Chicago that is an old abandoned airfield that was actually the training space and where the Tuskegee airmen came
yes.
from.
The Red Tails. The Red
Yeah,
Tails.
and I was appalled at the fact that they've taken this place that has such a history and have just let it go into ruin. And they still have people out there kind of sort of taking care of it, but they're not using it anymore, and it's literally just falling apart.
Oh, we just lost you there. Irish.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're having some Stripe issues. Don't worry, we'll battle through. It's all right. But just repeat what you said. Sorry, just for
I
the
don't.
last.
Okay, I don't remember where you lost me, but
I just no. You were saying you found this place and then we lost.
Oh, okay. So in Illinois, outside of Chicago, there's a building that I had seen on a show called Mysteries of the Abandoned.
Right.
And it was literally the place of the Tuskegee Airmen where they were trained and put out. And I was just really appalled at the fact that it was actually no longer being upkept and it was falling apart. And here in America, where we allow, we put up statues to Confederates, we allow a historical place like this air base where the Tuskegee Airmen were all trained to fall into disrepair and to just be left to rot. And I thought that was really sad. It actually made me really sad when I found out that's where they had been trained and stationed. There's
an American movie, which I can't remember the name of it, but set during the Second World War, set during the Battle of the Bulge in Western Europe in, 1944? Late December 1944. So the Nazi Germans have broken through the American lines. And anyway, there is a scene in this movie where there is an infantry unit, or not an infantry unit, a support unit, okay, which has been cut off. There is one lone tank destroyer, which has been cut off, and there is a British pilot, I think, who's been shot down. And they sort of make this rough and ready group that links all together, cut off behind the lines, trying to get out, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, the commander of the tank is just like a low NCO, what we would call like a Lance Corporal or something. He's not very high up, all right? Corporal or something like that. But one of the black soldiers is a full sergeant, okay? He is what we call a staff sergeant, high up sergeant,
yes.
Right? So, and anyway, and they're there, but the problem is that the white tank commander, even though he's outranked by the black soldier, won't take orders from him because he's black. And it's interesting, the British pilot who's with them says, for God's sake, he is your superior. You do what he says without question. I don't care what colour his skin is. He is your superior. You follow his orders. And the whole movie is about this battle that they have. In the end, it all gets very, very sick because suddenly they realise that they're friends. And it's a bit like the Wild Geese. I don't know if you've ever seen the British movie The Wild Geese, where Hardy Kruger's meant to be this South African. I love the movie. Don't get me wrong. I grew up with it as a kid. I thought it was fantastic, but. Hardy Kruger's meant to be this South African who hates black people. He calls them the K word. That's the South African version of the N word. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say.
Yeah, I know what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Now it's used all throughout the movie. And anyway, and he hates this guy they've got to rescue, right? Because he's black. Anyway, they rescue. In the end, he gives his life to save him because he's been turned around. Okay. It's a beautiful sentiment, but I don't believe that someone goes from a lifetime of racism to being an equalist like in 24 hours. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit hard to accept. It's a beautiful concept, but
it's
really,
a movie. I think a lot of times you have to recognize that they have a limited place, to tell the story. They have just so many pages they can put out there, and they try to shove like an entire life-changing event into, 140 minutes.
I know.
So, there's a lot of movies out there that try to, shorten what it normally would be. I'm not going to say nobody does it, not in 24 hours necessarily, but we have, and I honestly don't know the person's name, but I've seen him speak. He was a white guy who was in all of these hate groups. He was a racist. He was a white supremacist. It was like neo-Nazis, all this stuff. And I actually don't know what it was that changed him, but now he is changed completely. And he had like a a moment of an epiphany of something, something happened and it changed him. And now he goes around and speaks to white supremacist groups and neo-Nazis and tries to talk to them about who he is and who he was and how he became who he is now and why it's important to be better. And I wish I could remember the guy's name, honestly. It was pretty freaking amazing. So I really respect somebody that can actually take in new information and change how they feel based upon that new information and work, aggressively to be a better person and to spread that better person goodness to others, and to try to reach those who were like him at the time. So I know it can happen. I don't think it's common, well, and certainly not in 24 hours. I'm thinking.
I can tell you a story if our listeners are interested about my next door neighbour, who was this guy. He was creepy as all hell. Like, he was about 105, and there'd be a knocker at the door every third day. My computer doesn't work. Could you help me with... Oh, okay. My garage door isn't working properly. Can you... Okay, yeah, all right. So, and in the end, it was just... And the only time it got really creepy was he started talking to my daughter. And who was, 17 at the time. And the thing was, he was fine, but it was just... the way he spoke to her was really creepy. I mean, he wasn't trying to pick her up. He wasn't a pedophile. Don't get me wrong, right? But okay. Just the way the way he spoke was just like, ugh, you know what I mean? But I think he was just a man of his time in a different, like, he was a man outside of his time zone, right? And
right.
Anyway, so he would always, and in the end, he was always having problems with his computer, and in the end, he was trying to upload all of these photographs to this database that he had, all this family stuff he was trying to save for the family. And I said, all right, I'll help you, okay? I said, I'm not a computer expert, but I'm going to know a lot more than you do, all right? So, I'll help you, all right? So I did, and going through all these photos and stuff, and there he is in his SS uniform. Not just the German army, right? But his it's right, because I recognise the symbols. I know, and don't get me wrong. The death head skull is not an SS symbol. A lot of people think it is. It's not. It's an old German symbol. So don't, before people start saying maybe he was a tank driver. No, I know the difference between the SS and. However, I do also know the difference between Waffen SS and Einsatzgruppen. Right, I know. I'm a history buff. I know the difference. All right. Now, however, that's still fucking unbelievable. You're still.
I feel like that would be horrifying to see and realize.
And anyway, so I realized. I said, "That's SS," and he said, "Waffen SS." Yes. And I said, "But." Because we never really. He had a strong accent, but I've never asked him where he was from. Now it turned out he was actually from Latvia. He was a Latvia. He was part of what was called the SS. What do you want to call the Foreign Legion? He was part of the foreign recruitment. Okay.
Right.
Now, these people were kind of like, was a bit like, what it turned out from talking to him was it was a bit like. Work camp, in other words, do you want to go off and work in a German, mine, digging coal?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that. How do I get out of that? Well, you could join the army. Well, I can't join the army. I'm not German. Well, the SS recruits foreigners. They have a foreign legion.
Right.
So this was a bit like joining the French Foreign Legion, just that it was... Yeah. So he did. Now, what if I found out through time was that he had no problem with the Jews. He couldn't care less. He did hate the communists, so he thought, they're all anti-communist. That's good, right? But even so, he came out of the war as, you're okay, you get a free pass. You're Waffen SS, in other words, war SS, fighting SS.
Right.
You're not Einsatzgruppen. Einsatzgruppen were the ones who did the murdering, okay?
Right.
But you're still part of the same organisation.
Yeah.
And... Yeah. Now, I understand that, the world was very complicated in an occupied country where people are starving to death, all right? So, but fuck me, it was a shock. It really was.
I bet. God. It was hard for me, and I'm not even Catholic or even a Christian at this point. We talked about that, but it was hard for me to like wrap my head around the fact that the Roman Catholic Church had chosen the previous Pope Benedict after he had been a Nazi youth. And I understand that they maybe didn't have a choice but to join.
Yeah.
But my opinion was they were filled with propaganda and a lot of stuff when they were young, and I don't know where his head was then. And I thought it was very interesting after the fact when he was the first pope in history to actually resign. And I thought, I wonder what his internal dialogue was there. I wonder if that had anything to do with it in general, just the way he had been raised to believe these things. And, I don't know. You want to give somebody a pass because they were a kid doing something, but you wonder how could it not deeply affect their ideology? I don't know.
It's a bit like that beautiful movie. Was it Jojo Rabbit?
You know what? I haven't seen it yet, and I'm dying to watch it.
You've got a family who is devoutly non-Nazi, but they're caught up in the whole concept of the war. They can't escape it. And I
get that too.
And you have Jojo, who is this young child, who idolizes the Nazis and Hitler because it's all he knows. It's all he's been told, right? And he dearly loves his mother, even though his mother is a devout anti-fascist. But his mother's still... And
his imaginary friend is a goofy
Hitler. Played by a Maori New Zealander. How fucking amazing is that? Would Hitler be turning over in his grave? It's a bit like in, To Be or Not to Be. It's like Hitler being played by an American Jew.
Oh my God!
Right?
Well, come on. You
gotta love it, and I think that's the thing I love about Mel Brooks, where he sort of said, you know what, if I can make money out of Hitler, serves him right.
I agree. It's like go ahead and make him look like a dumbass and have a good time with it.
Like the whole point is that what he did to my people, if I can make a few dollars back off him, great.
I think it's almost in a way just to mock him as opposed to, making dollars off it necessarily. But, everybody wants to make some cash.
Well, yeah, but that's also Mel Brooks doing the, what do you call it, the shtick. It's a bit like, I'm a Jew, I'm making money, I'm all about money, so I'm making money off Hitler, who complained about us because we only made money. Like, he's playing that whole game, right? He's playing up to it. But, yes, you're quite right. The whole thing is, it's a bit like, just go for it. But I think it's just hilarious that in that movie, Mel Brooks played out off Hitler. I just think it's hilarious, I mean, great film too. And both versions of that film, if you haven't seen it,
Springtime for Hitler?
No, not Spring. No.
Oh, that was the name of the
No. That's the producers. No, this is.
Yeah,
I think it's called To Be or Not to Be.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But Mel Brooks, unfortunately, it wasn't actually a Mel Brooks movie. Well, the second one was, but it was actually a remake of another famous Jewish comedian who made it, I think, back in the 1960s, and he remade it in the 80s. Both versions are hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Just the. I don't even try to describe the movie. It was this Mel Brooks. Every minute is sheer genius. You know what I mean? So, Mel Brooks is just. Mel Brooks, one of my great heroes in life. Carl
Reiner just passed away too. It's so devastating.
I know. and they were such great friends.
They were, yeah. Well, celebrities are coming out of the corners of all the places everywhere saying how Carl Reiner had been like their biggest mentor, and I can see that. I honestly even his roles that he played in the Ocean's movies.
Oh yes, yeah.
I thought he was just brilliant in those. He was one of my favorite characters in those. And I have to admit, even though the second one was terrible, I loved the first one and the third one. I thought they were really good. So.
I agree with you. The second one was a bit like, where are you going with this? This is...
That was awful.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts pretending to be Julia Roberts. And come on.
I know.
I mean, it was just like, seriously, y'all.
Like no one had ever thought that the two of them were spitting images of each other. Like it had never come. No, I'm sorry. I'll tell you the one I love though is Ocean's 8. I thought that was brilliant.
I was very impressed with what they did with that. You know, I thought they did well compared, to actually follow up with the way.
And the fact too, it's not a reboot. It's actually just the fourth movie in I was going to say trilogy in the franchise. It's just film number 4. In other words, they did the first 3, and now the sister has taken over. I think it's great.
Yeah, and I thought it was great. And honestly, I was waiting for any moment for Danny to show up at the end. I just was like straight up waiting for that to happen, and I was disappointed.
When she's at the
Don't give it away if people haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it. Yeah.
Okay, don't.
But this is one thing I have to admit. Like we spoke a little bit about Jodie Whittaker and Doctor Who last week.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, and one of the things I said that my problem with modern Doctor Who was not Jodie Whittaker, was not the Doctor becoming a woman. It was the writing of the show, and that was the showrunner. Okay.
Yeah.
Which we won't go down that thing again. I was rather drunkenly started calling him a certain name and stuff. Anyway. But okay. Anyway. But the thing is that I see so many people, and I know so many people who I consider friends, who hate all of these new female-led movies. They hate them, absolutely hate them.
Yeah.
And one of their reason, okay, and this is a bit difficult because I can't throw everyone into one basket, all right, because that would not be fair. But the general, if I'm just going to generally plaster it, okay, is that they don't like them because they say they're not funny. They just say the movies aren't funny. But my argument...
Because there's vaginas on the people saying the jokes.
Because I'll be honest with you, I watched Ocean's 8, and I thought, was it not only friggin' hilarious, I thought it followed the concept of what that franchise is precisely. Right?
Yeah, and the cast was amazing.
Yes, so if you liked Ocean's 11, how did you not like Ocean's 8? Because it's so that I didn't get. Number 2, especially when this is for Ghostbusters, okay?
Thank you for, because I was going to mention that,
is that I thought I laughed all the way through that movie, and I still do not understand. Okay, look, I understand that somebody might say that movie's not funny. I get that. But the fact that suddenly everyone who's a slight tinge of right-wingness says it's not funny, no, I think you're coming from this from a political point. I don't think you're coming from this from an entertainment perspective.
Well, I'm going to say I don't think it's necessarily a political point, and I don't mean to disparage what you're saying. I'm just saying I think in those instances, like, hello, I can't talk now. It's literally a misogynistic problem. And there are misogynists on both sides of the fence. I have experienced that. So literally this is about the same trope. It's also tripe. I've heard
the trope of the tripe.
A million times is that female comedians aren't funny. Well, you know why? You don't really maybe get what they're saying because they're talking about female things, which you don't know anything about. And if you do, you don't maybe understand it. But I'm sorry. There are some amazingly funny female comedians out there. And I just feel like it's to say that women aren't funny and to just bitch because a character got turned into a female, I don't really understand that. To me, it just seems like you're a guy with a tiny penis who can't stand to see women in power or doing anything that a man that you feel like they should, they're supposed to be doing. I've dealt with that in my own personal life. I have, people now that I have an issue with in general about, any movie that might change the race or the sex of a character that they have decided is a white guy is a problem. Okay?
Yeah.
Speaking of James Bond, as we did last week.
Yeah.
some people have a real problem with the concept of James Bond being black when they were talking about Idris Elba. Okay, and now they're saying they might have a female James Bond, which again couldn't happen because James Bond is a guy.
Well, that's
so who gives a fuck? You know, I understand maybe you'd have to change the name, but I'm going to be honest with you. I knew somebody named James and they were a female. I also know a female named Lawrence. So you can't tell me that they can't be a female just because it makes you uncomfortable personally. You know, they can be a female. You just won't like it. That's not my problem.
But see, my attitude is that you can make some changes and you can't make others. So, and if you're going to shout at me for this, I fully understand it. It's fine. I'll say my opinion. Okay.
I'm not going to shout at you.
No. Well, I know you wouldn't do that, but you know.
No, I'm not married to you. I'm not going to shout at you.
I know, yeah. And that is that there are some characters that can change totally. There are some characters that can change partially. So, for instance, the Doctor in Doctor Who can be a woman, can be black, can be Asian, can be transgender. It doesn't matter. The Doctor can be anybody as long as, well, it's got to be played by a human actor. You can't put a chimp in there, if you get what I'm trying to say, or a dog, right? But
well, I mean, you could.
Well, yeah, I know
if
you
could. Did a whole dog movie, like a dog.
I know. But
let's not give anybody any idea.
Okay, yeah. Well, we already went down the canine path, and Jesus Christ, was that a failure? All right. So anyway,
dog.
Fucking canine.
Never work with children or animals. Period.
Okay. Anyway,
don't.
So especially not when Australia gets the rights to K9 and tries to make its own spin-off Doctor Who series about
my God.
You don't even go down that path. Anyway, so luckily most
now
people have not seen it. Yeah, I know. Anyway, so but the whole idea is, so the Doctor can be anybody, okay? Now, in my opinion, James Bond, all right? James Bond can be black, white, Asian, Pakistani. It doesn't matter what the ethnic background is of James Bond. But James Bond does need to be a man because we've written all of this canon, unless you want to just say everything. So you can change the race of that character, but not the sets of that character.
You know, I do agree with you on a level there. That character was established as a British spy.
British male spy.
And a British male spy. So I actually think Idris Elba would be a great addition.
Oh, yeah.
I think he'd be amazing because he's just great anyway. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be upset about a female James Bond. They're talking about it now. I get that.
Yeah,
but I understand what you're saying there. I wouldn't want to see a female character turned into a guy. So, because there's so few great femile characters.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. There's not enough of them, so you can't lose them. I agree with that. And because that's the argument of the other side, which is always, oh, well, if you're going to change ours, we'll change yours. And it's like, no. Here's the other thing, too. Well, anyone, if I just say this and then I promise I'll shut up, all right?
Don't do that. We're doing a podcast. That would be boring.
No, but I talk too much and you don't talk. I tend to just talk too much. Is that anyone who's gone to university, all right? Anyone who's gone to university who studied arts, who has studied sociology, will have studied the concept of revolution, how a revolution works, all right? And this stuff is studied, all right? And the simple fact is that in any revolution, and I'm not going to go into huge depths about this because I'll bore the shit out of everybody, okay? And it was also a very long time since I was at university. But
I might demand it, though, so just get ready.
Okay, but the thing is, in any revolution, it is not an equal split of assets. That is not how a revolution works. So the whole concept is that if women need to be raised up because men have too much percentage, what happens in a revolution is the men's percentage lowers dramatically as the women's goes up, and then it balances at 50%. you do not have an open slather where everybody just says, right, okay, jobs are open, go for it. That's not how revolution works. And you look at any revolution through history, it just doesn't happen that way. Humans don't operate like that.
Egalitarianism.
Well, it's just that if you want humans to act like that, that's fine. Go and reprogram the DNA of everyone on the planet, and then you can sit back behind your Twitter account and say, we'll do that, okay? If you can tell me how to redesign the DNA of every human, fine.
Well, okay. I'm going to admit that I'm super confused about what you're talking about. What has that got to do with women not playing men characters?
Okay. What I meant is that... Okay.
Yeah, connect for me.
Okay. If you're in a situation where you've got far more male heroes than female heroes, what you do is you don't say open slather, spill all roles, and just the best person finds the role for the character. Okay? That's not what happens in a revolution. What happens is you give the roles to women and you take the roles away from men until it balances itself.
Well, see, here's the thing. Most of the shows that I create are female-centric. All of the heroes of the shows are female. And I don't do that because I'm trying to make men look bad. I don't think there's enough female-centric shows on anything.
Viva Revolution! That's what you're doing.
Well,
you're creating the revolution.
We don't have to honestly take old characters and just reboot them. I think that that's a bad habit of us right now because we're lazy. Yeah. We want to have new shows and new things, and we want to say, oh, look, here's some female characters and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? We're not changing anything. We're just taking things from the male characters and turning them into female characters. So, yeah, that makes the guys go, oh, my God, what's happening? You know, the dumb ones. But the others, you know, I don't want to take characters that have already been established as male and turn them into something different. I want to, or trans or whatever. I don't want to turn them into something else. I want to create new, amazing characters. I want new stories. I'm sick and tired of us rebooting all the old shit. Like we have I know the joke is there's only 7 stories in Hollywood, okay? And they're all just remakes of the same stories. But see, that's bullshit. Because here in America and across the globe, we have amazingly talented people with amazingly new, fresh ideas, with great stories that no one is willing to give them an opportunity. You know why? Because Hollywood is run by old white men.
Yep.
And that's the problem. So we reboot all the old white guy stuff. And then they say, oh, look, we're being advanced because we're taking this guy character and turning it into a female. Well, that's not what we really necessarily want. Like, have you seen Star Trek Discovery, the newest of the Star Trek series?
Oh yes, I'm a big fan. Yes.
I didn't watch it when it first came out. I had no idea. I had heard it was coming on, but I didn't pay any attention to it. And then about 6 months ago, I got Disney Plus and I started looking, or CBS, that's what it was, because I wanted to watch Picard. That's what it was, which was amazing, by the way. If you're an old Star Trek Next Generation fan, you will love that.
Bit slow in the first few episodes, but then it starts to pick up.
It took me a little bit, but there were characters in there that I started.
It's a bit slow,
what I loved about it is that the main character in that was a strong black female.
Yeah,
and then and there's also trouble
with baggage. Who is a real person? They have baggage. They have baggage.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the actor's name now that plays Saru, but he plays characters in all kinds of things. Like he was in Hellboy as Abe, the underwater character. Like
which character was that? He's
played some great roles, and he's in that.
But who did he play in that show? Which one? He was the.
He was the guy that was underwater. He was Abe, I think they called him. In Hellboy, not the newest one.
Oh no! I mean in Picard. In Picard, what?
Oh, in Picard, he played Saru, who was the alien first mate.
Oh,
and
right.
The one that had the little. Like, I don't want to give away too much, but he's the one that they went back to.
Yeah.
I thought he's amazing. And honestly, the character development through that whole series was amazing. So I'm really looking forward to season 3. And then there's some, other shows that are coming on now where they have a lot of Black female leads, and I think it's amazing. But I think it's all about making new characters that are strong female characters, and I just don't think we have to keep remaking and changing old white guys to people that are different. I think let's just do some new stuff because fuck those old guys.
Thank you. Okay, here's the thing. Why is 20% of American movies remakes? Reboots
because Hollywood is lazy.
Or lazy. And then how many of those movies that aren't even in that, let's do another 20%, which are just remakes of European or Asian films.
Oh, some of the Japanese films and stuff like.
How many movies do people go? Oh, we go to the cinema. We're going to go watch The Ring. We're going to watch Dark Water. We're going to watch. It's a Japanese film just being rebuilt.
I mean, The Office here. I mean, we basically stole that from something in Britain. So
there are sometimes though when you guys actually do the show better than the original. And I would argue that The Office, the American version of The Office, was better than the British original. And I would I would very, very rarely say that, to be truthful.
Right, I agree with that, yeah.
But in the case of The Office, that was one case where, and I think it had to do with, what is it? Was it Fabulon? Not a doctor. That company, right? They're brilliant. Was it Parks and Recreation? What the other shows?
I've never seen an episode of that, and I feel sad.
Ron Swanson is one of the most hilarious characters ever created in Parks and Rec. This libertarian man who is somehow is almost like a superhero. I cannot put it. You've got to watch it. Okay, Ron Swanson is like he is. Oh my God! I mean, look, I'm not a fan of libertarianism. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff.
Nobody is.
Okay, but the character that he plays is so friggin' hilarious, and the guy, I've forgotten his name. He is such a great actor who plays Ron Swanson. Just look up Ron Swanson on Google. Right, he is brilliant, and I'm not a huge fan of Parks and Recreation, the show. I think the show's a bit whatever, but that character of Ron Swanson is just fucking hilarious. Yes, yeah. Anyway, but yeah.
Well,
anyway,
the pause. It was the weird, yeah.
Well, there's a pause. Well, it's a bit like I'm talking too much. I want you to talk. We probably should take. We should. We take a quick break.
Yeah. Let's take a break because I have an hour and a half before I must be finished.
That's all right. Yeah. We'll take a quick break and we will be right back. And we have back. Well, we have back? We are back. Sorry. I'm sorry. The cocktails of
no more vodka for you.
No more vodka for the Saint. The Saint had a slash and it wasn't quite enough. Anyway, all right. We'll bring up another point because I don't know whether you have this in the United States, but we touched on this briefly just as we were coming back on air, and that is youth networks on the radio. Now, yes, anyone can make a podcast. It's not very hard, okay? But in Australia, we have a radio network called SYN Radio on the actual airways, on FM radio airways. SYN as in SYN, which stands for Student Youth Network. Now, to be on the show, you've got to be to be on air, you need to be between 14 to, I think it's 24. The vast majority of people who are on air are between 16 to about 20, something like that. For the very young ones, between 14 and 16, they generally will have a supervisor, like someone who's over 18 with them while they're on air. But the thing about it is that they do two things. Now, no show runs for more than 3 months. And to get a show on the network, you have to pitch it. So, in other words, a group of kids, 16-year-old kids, will get together. They'll come up together with an idea of a weekly radio show of an hour. They will go to the network and they pitch it. They pitch
I think
it
that's
like
amazing.
But there is also for the very young ones, like the 14 to 16s, there is a set thing for an hour every day where they rotate. And every school is allowed to do a show per week. So they rotate through the schools. So they will pick people from the schools, and you've got these 14-year-old kids, they do a show on live radio, FM radio. They're 14. It's their show.
I think that's what a great experience for kids that age to actually learn something about what they might want to do in the future. I think it's amazing.
Do you have anything like that in the United States?
Not that I know of. And if I'm wrong, somebody send me a link or something, because I'd actually really love to know. I have an idea for a series that I wanted to do years ago, and I still am trying to work toward it, but it's not been at the top of my list because I have other things. But something I was going to have where it was basically like kids that age talking about environmental issues and news and things like that. Not like a regular kids news show where you might see on, at school on the morning announcements or something, but literally like guerrilla shooting into areas and doing information that young people care about that they think old guys don't know about, that they want us to know about the important things that matter to them. It would mostly be environmental and political, but from a younger person's perspective.
We have a channel in Australia called Channel 31, but I think it's coming to an end though, so I don't know what's going to happen when it comes to an end. But it was anyone could get a show on that. You pitch the show, right? Mm-hmm. We had a lot of youth shows on that. 16-year-olds doing shows. Not
Is it a national kind of channel?
Oh yeah, God, yeah. Channel 31 was for everyone.
We have community access TV, which is like local TV.
Right.
My mother got a show pitched when I was in 7th grade for the first time down in Naples, Florida, and it was just called About Town. It was really just a guy going around talking about restaurants and different things that were in the town. It was on community access, but it was the first TV series my mother ever did, which I thought was great. Just local.
Okay, yeah, but that's all.
National is amazing, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I believe it started in Melbourne, Australia, which, not surprising, Melbourne is kind of the arts capital of Australia. And very much so. Yeah, Sydney Opera House may be in Sydney, but the arts capital is Melbourne.
You know what? I'm stupid. So how far away is Sydney from where you live?
As the crow flies, about 800 kilometres. In driving terms, about 1,000 kilometres. It's a day's drive. A
whole day. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you leave at 8 in the morning. You get there at 7 at night.
Oh, okay. So it's almost as far as it is for me to go from Orlando to Nashville. Almost.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's that. Yeah. Now it's one of the quick drives in Australia.
Yeah. Y'all are spread out there.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so. Do you know there is? What is it? I believe Australia actually has more freeway than America.
Well, I mean, I don't know anything about that. That's probably true.
Major roads, because the thing is that we have to have multi-lane roads to connect these cities, which are 5 days apart. Right, so if you actually add the distance up, it's more than America has because your cities aren't that far apart.
No,
even though your country's huge, but your cities aren't that far apart. So
no, we have a lot of people here. I think we're at like 330 million people or something.
330. I think Australia's 27 million.
That's what I'm saying. How many?
Yeah,
27 million.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, you guys have a lot fewer people there than we do. So
So
that's why you're more
you
spread
have
out.
basically you have 10 times as many people as us in about the same technical size. However, there is a lot of our country which isn't really livable. It's a
That's
bit
how
like,
we feel about Montana and Iowa.
well,
People
okay.
still live there. I'm sorry. I don't mean to insult that. That's a joke.
That's an American joke. That's an American joke. I can wipe my hands of that. I'm not American. All right.
It's an American Floridian joke.
Yeah. It's a bit like me saying everyone from Sydney's an arsehole. You know what I mean? I'm just allowed to say it.
It's the Opera House. It does it to everyone.
No, it's actually, that's not true. I love fucking Sydney. I've lived in Sydney. Sydney's an amazing place, actually. Oh, Sydney is an amazing city, actually. It's not as good as Melbourne. Like, if you had to choose where you would go, okay, it sort of depends what you want. Like, if you're in Australia, if you're a tourist and you just want to go to the beach, great weather, you know, you want to go and see Disney World or Warner Brothers, you know, all those are all right. Go to Brisbane. Brisbane, Queensland, that's where you want to be, right?
Is there a Disney World in Brisbane?
I don't think there's a Disney World. There's a Warner Brothers World, actually, I think.
Okay, because I was confused. I never heard of a Disney park in Australia.
It's Warner Brothers. So,
okay.
And they have all that, you know, if you want to go and see the bloody Tigers perform, okay, that's where you go. It's Queensland, right? Queensland.
Okay.
It's the Alabama of Australia, all right? So, that's where you go, all right? Queensland. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Queensland's beautiful. It really is, but it's.
I almost spit out my martini. I'm sorry.
Okay, but it's New South Wales. Okay, Sydney. Sydney. Okay, oldest state in the country. Sydney, the origins of Australia. And Sydney is fantastic. It really is. And if you are going to visit Sydney, you will come to Sydney and you will say, "Oh, if I come back to Australia, I'm going to live in Sydney." Well, that's because you were a tourist, all right? Sydney is a great tourist, as in like the culture, as in the, you know, like the history and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Sydney is beautiful. The harbour, all the old stone buildings around the harbour. You know, it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful, and and the Sydney beaches on the harbour are amazing, right? So. It's great. And the fact that they live on this friggin' harbour, it's just brilliant, right? They have this own mini... the city surrounds a mini ocean, right? It's brilliant.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, it's absolutely brilliant. However, try living there, all right? Because if you want to live by the water, okay, I hope you've got a cool $12 million for your house.
Oh, well, there's a lot of places like that here in Florida.
Okay.
So.
However, if you've got, let's say, an average Australian... $700,000 to spend on a house.
That's the average Australian. Y'all have some money up there.
My house is worth
I don't know what the exchange rate is anyway.
Housing in Australia is expensive. All right,
I bet it is. Yeah.
No, an average house in Sydney or Melbourne, I think at the moment is around about $800,000 just for a 3-bedroom house.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a lot of money. But it's not different than some of our larger cities, LA, some places like that. That's going to be kind of the same. If I want something nice in Paris, I'm going to pay that. So
the valuation from the bank, both my bank, because I still have a mortgage, from the bank and from the council, because you pay your rates. You know, get your garbage collected, all the rest of it. They rate the price of your house. Mine is round about with land and house, because, you know, you've got to combine the two, because the house could burn down, you still own the land. So the two combined, I think my property's rated at about $1 million at the moment.
Right. Well, it says here, because I had to look it up because I'm an idiot, $1 American dollar translates to about $1.44 in Australian dollars.
Well, so my house in US dollars, if you were going to transfer the money across, $650,000 US.
US. Okay, I mean,
that's US. If you were going to buy the house with American money and move to Australia, that's what it would cost you.
Right.
However,
you're very fancy.
But remember, well, no, I'm not.
I'm
That's
teasing,
the whole point.
stop.
Oh, okay. Houses. We've got to a stage in Australia where there is an argument that people under 30 can't buy a house. They cannot.
Well, that's happening here. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's because the problem is if a house, if just like for a young family with a child, okay, they want to buy a house, one child, young family, they're 23, let's say, they want to buy their first house. Even that basic house that they're going to move in won't be the house they die in. It's the house, the first house.
The starter house, yeah.
The starter house, which is we're different to Europeans. You know, they buy a house, they live in it forever. You know, Australians will go through 3 houses in their lifetime.
Americans sometimes do that too, but not all. You know,
right?
Not
We
always,
buy and sell. Generally, you buy your first house, sell it, buy a second one, maybe even a third one.
Right.
The thing is that if you're 23 with a child, which means you're all the problems that well, not the problems, but you know what I mean, the difficulties.
Come on.
Okay. Yeah, problems. Yeah, I'll be honest. Okay. Now, so the house you want to buy, just that's $800,000, right? Okay, so let's say your combined income, maybe between the two of you, plus you're paying from childcare, so the two of you can work, right? So you've got to find, let's say, out of a combined income, I don't know, to maybe $190,000 a year, $180,000 a year. But here's the thing: one of you could be earning $100,000 a year, and the other one's only earning 60 or 40, right? Because they're doing, or even less, 20, because they're working part time. Yeah, it was the child, right? So and that now somehow you've got to find 10 to 20% deposit for the bank, so you can borrow the money to buy an $800,000 house, and that's a 3-bedroom house with 1 bedroom, with 1 bathroom.
Right. And it's small. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I was shocked at the fact, because I thought Florida houses were expensive, and then I started looking at different places around the country, and I mean, in some places, if you want to go into a rural area, you can find places that are less expensive than what we have here. But honestly, I was shocked at the price of what we have here in Orlando versus what you have in some of the other major big cities. And we're not a major city here, honestly. We have a very small population. The majority of the people here come as tourists. So we have a lot of people here that live here just basically to work in the hotels and restaurants and the theme parks, because we have so many of them, to actually just support the whole tourist industry here. So our houses here are a little less expensive. The one I am living in right now that I recently moved into is, I think retailing for about $360,000. And it's in a nice area, and it's a nice size house.
But your house is. How is your house more beautiful than mine and worth a third the amount? That's not right.
Well, because here we don't have that many people, and I feel like our prices are a lot less than somewhere like LA or New York or Chicago, like even in Minneapolis, where I lived all my elementary school years. I recently looked there to see, because I have a terrible wanderlust. I want to move. I can't convince the people in my family.
Come to the land down under.
I can't convince the people in my family to move overseas, even though I, have something in another country right now that I could go to, but I can't go to, because we are all being held here like prisoners.
Okay, well, let's face it. COVID-19, another 1 year to 18 months. All right, I mean that's what we're looking at. Let's be honest. Let's go off Spanish flu type concepts. It's not by the time
Spanish flu was like 1918. Okay, my great grandparents just moved to this country.
Okay, yes, but
my grandfather was born in 1918.
But with zero medical research, it still ended within 2.5 years. With zero medical research.
Yeah, and look at what's happening now. I mean, it's worse.
Well, I spoke to when I was talking to my daughter actually yesterday. We were talking about vaccines. Like, have you heard anything? You're a nurse. And she goes, Dad, I'm a nurse. I'm not fucking part of the the political, it's like, oh yeah, sorry.
I have no idea what's going on, honestly. Okay. What I know is that other parts of the country that have actually done something here, they're reducing their numbers, but Florida has a moronic Trump-supporting Republican governor. And I'm not sure, and I might have mentioned this before, that I'm not sure he was actually elected legally.
Oh, really?
I feel like there was some shit going on there because we've found out, some things. So I don't mean to be conspiracy theorist, but I don't necessarily trust our election system right now.
But your system is highly hackable, though, isn't it? I mean,
like within 30 seconds, a 13-year-old can hack our entire system. Like, so that's bullshit.
You can't hack the Australian election system because it's like everyone does it in pencil. The ballots are taken, and when they're counted, there is a representative of every party on board, on site to overlook the counting. And they can look, challenge, everything's done in the open. And my mother, I'll tell you this story too, actually. My mother, before my parents moved overseas, this is when I was a kid, okay? Right. And my parents decided they were going to fuck Australia off and they were going to live overseas. and they lived in Germany, Singapore, New Zealand.
That's amazing. I have terrible wanderlust.
This great story. I still remember my mother was in Germany and she wanted to send my daughter, who at the time was, how old would she have been? 1 year old, I think, at the time, right?
Oh my gosh!
And she wanted to send a teddy bear she said a teddy bear. There's nothing better than German. Because let's face it, German teddy bears are the best teddy bears.
They are.
Okay, they just are. I'm sorry, nationalists, but German teddy bears are the best teddy bears. All right, so she's in Germany.
Come on, they're named teddy bears because of Theodore Roosevelt. That's an American name.
I know, even though but teddy bears have now become German. It's a German thing. Anyway, so she wanted to send a German teddy back to her grandchild, right? Anyway, and so she's talking to her German friends, and they were out somewhere, I think, for dinner or something like that. And she goes, I just... But remember, too, this is pre-smartphone. You can't just go and do a translation. Right. And even though my mother... the language. And even though my mother is Swiss and speaks German, her German, because of history, where she was born... So her German is, let's just say, broken. All right? We'll just say that. All right? Okay. So she said, just confirm, how do I exactly ask for a teddy bear in a shop? Right. Now, okay. Mm-hmm. So, and she said, do I say teddy bear? Right, is what she's trying to say. All right. But it's broken German. But so German's good, but it's broken. So she's saying, how do I say teddy bear? Like, what do I say? Right. And they just came back and they said, just say teddy bear. For fuck's sake, just say teddy bear. Everyone knows it's a teddy bear. Teddy bear's not actually... You don't translate it. It's just teddy bear. It's teddy bear in any language. You know what I mean?
On top of that, though, I mean, a lot of people in the EU speak English better than Americans. Other places in the country. Yeah. So, other places in the world.
Well, this bear arrived by Express Deutsche Post, and... And for some reason, it got called Tyson. I can't remember why the bear was called Tyson. But
did it bite somebody's ear off?
I don't think it was. I don't think Tyson had to do with. No, not with him.
I'm sorry.
I love you as all. Oh no, that's an Australian boxer. Sorry, that's someone else. Sorry. No, but it was called. I don't know why was it. I still remember every single toy my daughter, when she was a child, owned, had a name. They all had names. They all had bat stories too. All of them had bat stories.
Wow.
And I still remember there was one, and my sister, her auntie, all right. She had one toy which was called after my sister, which I don't say it. So my sister's name is Trudy. Good German name, right? Trudy. Okay. With the I, not the Y. It's German spelling.
Oh, very nice.
Not the Y. Okay. My mother's Swiss, all right? So anyway, Trudy, all right? So anyway, my daughter decided, it was all of them, right? And she gives them, so she named one of her toys Trudy, which was huge respect to her auntie, right?
Yeah.
But the toy that she named was the elephant, right? And my sister was always like, of all the fucking toys, the elephant? Really? The elephant? You know? It's like, oh, it was funny. It was so funny.
I had to think about the fact that as dolls, when I was little, we lived in Minneapolis, I remember very distinctly, my parents bought me, they were, plastic dolls, but they were dressed in these really fancy dresses. And one of them was definitely Scarlett O'Hara in the dress she had made of the curtains. And looking back on that now, I laugh about all of the stuff that's going on with Gone with the Wind. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened to Scarlett O'Hara, my doll. But I do know she was dressed distinctively in the curtains that she had made into a dress before Rhett Butler had come by.
Right.
I also had a doll that was dressed as a bride. She was blonde, big, massive white lace dress with a thing on her head. And I named her Babette for some reason, because very obviously she was a French bride. I think I might have been 4. And then I had a Spanish doll in a huge red lace dress with a thing on her head, like a veil. And I had named her Margarita. I have no idea why I knew these names as a 4-year-old. But I thought it was pretty funny that my parents had bought me these dolls that were just like excessive. But the Scarlett O'Hara thing, it was ridiculous. I actually realized now, I was like, I don't know if they were trying to perpetuate any kind of Southern. I feel like they weren't because of who they were.
But it's a long time ago. I mean,
When it was a very long time ago when I was 4. Absolutely.
No. That's not what I meant, and you know that's not what I meant.
That's what it meant, honestly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
not you. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
It was a long time ago.
I know for a fact that a lot of the things that I saw, witnessed, experienced, watched on television.
Yeah, you didn't get it.
No. What I was going to say is, when I look at it now, when I look back at it now, we're incredibly racist, sexist, homophobic.
But we didn't know.
However, I don't believe that the people involved in those situations were racist, sexist, or homophobic. It's just the way the world was. In other words, look, I'll be honest with you. I used to joke when I was I am a huge, huge supporter of, I'm about to say gay rights. Why the fuck? Gay marriage is legal now. I mean, why the fuck? I don't have to support it. It's fucking legal. Okay?
Well, but people still try to fight against it, so any supporters are good. So, yeah. 75%
of the Australian population voted yes for gay marriage. I think our country supports it. Right?
I think it does.
Do you know what I mean? I mean,
because
we actually had an election, unlike you guys. You guys, like your courts decided gay marriage was legal.
Mm-hmm.
We put it to the popular vote. We said, should gay marriage be allowed? But this is the thing, amazing. When I was born, this is the amazing thing. 2020, right now, in Australia, gay marriage is legal. We all have, we all have gay friends, but a lot of us have gay friends, or we are gay, or whatever. It's all in the open. It's all fine. In Australia, we have the Sydney Mardi Gras. We have a 30-year tradition of a march down the street to celebrate LGBTQ tradition. Okay?
LGBTQ. You gotta say this.
Sorry. There's been some cocktails.
I know, but there's been some cocktails. Right. So
we do all of,
listen to me.
We do all of this. Okay. But I can remember. So I support all of this.
Yeah.
But I can still remember as a kid calling people puffs. Do you know what I mean? I still remember all of that.
I remember using a term like, "Oh, that's gay," when I was younger, because that was something that you said when something you felt was stupid. Now I realize that was a terrible thing to say, Like, I didn't know as a kid that was a problem, but that's what the slang was and people were using. I didn't understand what the depth of that meant, and now I do.
But this is
So,
this is the thing. I mean, I have stood up and supported gay people to the fucking to the death.
Oh,
It makes it sounds like I'm on the fucking bollards or the bollarcades or whatever. I'm going to sing the Marseillaise.
Just love who they love.
I'm going to sing the Marseillaise. Standing there with fucking, But that's not what I mean. What I mean is, I've defended gay friends and bisexual. Oh, this is the other thing too, because I think I can say this now. My partner, who is now no longer of this earth, she was bisexual. All right. So the thing is that, however, she made a choice. It wasn't like she. I don't even know why I'm trying to explain that. That's just fucking stupid.
Well, no,
right?
I mean,
but anyway,
I mean, when she was with you, that she chose you. So
true.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say, because sometimes you have idiots who go, "Oh, does that mean that he was cheating around?" No. And sometimes I suddenly realise I don't have to explain that, because the vast majority of people are not redneck bogan fuckwits. Okay?
Right.
But you get into a stage where sometimes you feel like you have to explain things all the time, and it's a bit like, no, why should I have to do that? Because of your ignorance. Your problem is you need to learn some education. How bad? How fucking pathetic was that statement? How
I liked
the
it,
grammar.
It was good that you caught it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's oh my god. Okay, that's just oh my god. Okay. Yes. Okay. Which brings us on to something I wanted to talk about, actually. Well, actually, let's. We've chatted enough about that. What I was going to say. No.
Oops, I dropped some stuff.
Oh, please don't tell me it was gin.
Nothing important. No. That's still in my glass.
Oh, that's all right then. All right.
Yeah, I don't need to drink it, though. I'm going to leave it where it is.
No, that's all right.
It's to remind me, no more.
Okay. Well, never more. Was it Poe? Was it Erwin?
No kitties are in here. No kitties.
No. Poe. Was Nevermore.
Wait.
Nevermore. The poem. Nevermore.
Oh, I'm sorry. I only know the passive aggressive reading, which is never mind.
I've forgotten the bloody author. I've forgotten the poet. Was it Allan Poe?
Edgar Allan Poe. And yeah. I thought you were talking about one of my cats.
No, just
I have a cat named Poe.
No. Oh, so no, you said the word nevermore, and I just said nevermore. This is the line from the poem. Nevermore.
I know it. I know. I said I only know the passive aggressive raven.
Oh,
never
sorry.
mind.
Oh, sorry. Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh,
come on.
Oh my god. Okay, sorry, Warren. Okay, I'm going to play a sound effect you can't hear. Do you ready? I'm putting something in my head. There we go. They just heard me shoot myself in the head. All right. So.
Oh, no! Don't do that. Okay, I have to take a break for 1 second.
All right. So we are going to do that. We'll be back. We'll be back. Here we go. All right.
Yeah.
We are back, and by saying "shut up," I didn't have to put the mute on. Woo! Okay, so we are. Sorry,
he told me to shut up, and I don't blame him.
I can't help it. I'm an Australian. We swear, we fucking insult, we do. That's what our country is.
Yeah, I get you. I might as well be Scottish. I swear so much.
Well, no,
so it's fine.
It's the Scots, the Irish, the Australians. We just swear, we insult, we just do it. It's the other thing too. Have you ever noticed that a Scot or an Irish person or an Australian can insult someone and they say, "Yeah, that's all right." Like, they don't take it as an insult, right? Have you ever noticed that? It's somehow these three nations get free passes on insults. Have you ever noticed that?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I have actually. Warren, we have to tell people that someone else is here. We can't have an extra giggling voice.
I was just being said. We have to introduce an amazing person. Great friend of mine.
I'm sorry.
Don't know.
Okay,
amazing person. This person sent me a magazine which still hangs on the wall of my study. Okay?
Oh.
Framed. An amazing person. Tim Stewart, hello, how are you?
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, sorry, that was your introduction. Yes.
With this wonderful endorsement from my wife over here.
Sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, we must, of course, admit that, of course, Tim and Irish are married. And if you'd ever listened to the old cult movie show, which you can only now hear on YouTube, I think, if you go to the Saints... can I just do a little bit of publicity selling?
Do it. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
We should put this stuff on the new website.
Right.
We
So
if
you go to the YouTube Saints Martini website, YouTube, okay, you can hear the old cult movie show podcasts where you will hear Tim and Irish together in about 3 podcasts, I think. It's about
I think
3.
it's about 3, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, you'll hear Tim, and great. How are you, Tim? How are you? Hello. Sorry.
Hello. I've been very, very good, very good.
I'm pissed. I'm an
to be back
Australian.
here.
We live our life drunk. Anyway, so.
I made him drink something. He doesn't like that, so yeah.
I had a sip of very manly wine. It was good.
It wasn't a sip. I made you hold your nose and guzzle.
But
I told him he wasn't allowed to be on the show unless he had a drink, so yeah.
All right. Well, I have a question for the two of you, and I think this is a perfect question actually with the two of you on, and which is with the two of you on. It makes me sound like I'm running this fucking thing. Oh fuck!
You are, because otherwise I can't keep straight what's going on. So,
No. This is a conglomerate. This is a communistic group of people.
Yay,
running,
a commune, as it were.
Can we just say? Okay, we'll just say we're all communists. All right, there we go. All right.
Well, I'm a socialist Marxist, perhaps.
And now I'll just do the Stalinist thing. Well, I'll take control. All right, is that all right?
Go ahead. I like it.
Sorry.
Go ahead. What we're going to talk about?
Sorry, I'm so fucking mucking around. I'm sorry. What we're going to talk about is we had a great idea, and that was that.
Yeah.
At the moment, okay, we're all in lockdown. Okay, yeah, I know there are people that want to go and worship the great Saint Trump. All right, but okay, but for the rest of us who actually take lockdowns seriously, and for our governments, our public service who take lockdowns serious, in a couple of years' time, maybe late in 2001, hopefully we'll be able to start travelling again. Now, what I wanted to ask is, what is your favourite type of travel? Now, I have this whole idea of planes, trains, and automobiles, right? So we're not
great
talking
movie.
About, it is a great movie, actually.
Yeah.
That cigarette scene in the car, you know, playing the piano.
God.
Oh, my God.
John
okay,
Candy
with John
was
Candy, that's brilliant. And also Steve Martin being confronted by John Candy's underpants in the bathroom. But
I'm dead now.
yeah.
Okay.
But
they were great. But yeah.
Yes, but the whole idea is that when we get back, you know, maybe in a year, because let's face it, it's going to be at least a year until we're maybe travelling normally, maybe even a year and a half. Like, it's going to be a while. But what we remember before and what we're hoping in the future, have you guys got favourites? Like, how do you like to travel? We've all been on holidays. What's the way you like to travel? Do you want to hop in a car and drive across the country? Because let's face it, I'm an Australian, you're an American, you guys are Americans, right?
Right.
You guys can hop on the Jag and fucking drive to California if you want, right? It's the same.
Hard on that.
Okay, I can hop in the Alpha and I can drive from Melbourne to Perth. Probably it's an Alpha, it's Italian, it'll break down halfway. But apart from that, okay, I could do it. But what's your way of travel? What's your holiday choice? I'll shut up and I want to hear from you guys.
Go ahead.
For me, it's definitely a car. I mean, getting out on the road, you get to travel. I mean, how else can you stop and see the world's largest ball of yarn? You know, if you have the opportunity. We haven't, but where else do you get the opportunity? Certainly not in a plane. You know, a train is a passive means of travel. I guess I'm a car person.
Well, yeah, I don't want to travel on a long trip on a plane. I mean, on a car. I want to take a plane. Excuse me. I want to.
But you can't pull the plane over again and see the world's largest ball of yarn. It's just not possible.
I'm choking now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, did I ask you a question then? As a family, all right, if you're on holidays, do your holiday concepts change dramatically if it's just the two of you or it's a family? You get what I mean? Go back 5 years. Go back 5 years is what I'm trying to say, right?
Well, actually 5 years ago, I'm sorry, I'm choking. 5 years ago today, I was in a cavern in North Carolina with my mother and my son. We were visiting up there. That's the trip I told you about where I saw the Confederate stuff in the middle of the towns. Traveling up there in a car would have been interesting, but we took a plane. It was shorter. It was, a nice trip up. We nearly died on the trip down back to Florida, which was terrible. We found out 2 of our planes both had problems. There was a terrible storm. I have been traveling on planes since I was 2. My parents used to put me on a plane because at the time they actually could take you. If they didn't have a ticket, they could take you and put you in your seat and lock your belt. And you could have the other person that was meeting them come onto the plane and get you off and collect you. So I'd been traveling from Florida to Minneapolis to Elkhart, Indiana, that kind of thing since I was about 2. I love plane travel. It's shorter. It's less stressful on some levels, but I'm still also worried about the actual mechanical issues. And, as I get older, I'm more worried about the actual travel. But I do love a train.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tim, you're a car. Is that right? You want to do a car?
I'm a car person. I think there's just there's a lot more opportunity for memories, for spontaneity when you're in the car.
I agree, but if you don't have a ton of time to go, then you have to.
Okay, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fuck you all over, and I'm going to go.
Uh-oh.
Vote for Joe Biden because he loves the fucking trains. Vote Joe Biden. Woo, 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 woo. Trainee die.
Right.
When my mother had a house down in South Florida. Noah and I would take the train from Kissimmee, Florida, all the way down to Tampa, which was about, if you drive it, it's 45 minutes. If you take the train, it's an hour and a half. But you don't have to do anything but sit around. And they had, a food car and all this stuff. So we would do that from time to time. And then she'd come pick us up in Tampa and drive us the other 45 minutes down to our house. But the train was amazing. I loved to take the train.
Well, can I tell you, when I was young, okay, so in Australia, and this is Australian dollars, they probably were equal back then. They're not anymore. But I remember I would move around Australia. The option, you'd get a plane flight, and it was back then, I don't know, $600, all right?
Right.
Or $400 to go from Melbourne to Sydney. $400, right? But you could get an overnight first-class ticket on the train for $80, right?
Oh wow, that's crazy.
I was train all the way. Now the world is very different. This was in 1997. All right, we're going back to the times when that sort of happened.
Let's see, you got married.
Seriously, really?
Yeah, we got married in 97.
Okay,
yeah. We had dated for 10 years, so yeah, it was time.
Okay, well, so I still remember I had all these friends in Sydney, and I wanted to travel to see them, and I would just go on the train, it was great, and they had oh my god, and this is the thing, $20 more got you first class, right? Oh. And first class meant they brought the meals to you. The kitchen brought the meal to you in your seat. How cool is that, right?
But when I was a kid, our airlines would feed you too. They'd bring you food, but now you can't do that. They don't. You have to buy everything. You don't even get peanuts on some of them anymore because allergies.
No, Australian Airlines still feed you. They still. You do a 35-minute flight from Melbourne to Sydney, and they give you a meal.
That's
35 minutes, and they give you a meal, right? Seriously, Right? Yeah. I'm not joking. They do it.
I think I paid $25 for a box of cheese and some crackers on a flight once. No.
So all right. So basically, we're a three-way tie. We have cars, we have airplanes, and we have trains.
Well,
I'm the only person supporting Joe Biden. I'm an Australian.
No. I love to take a train. Honestly, I wanted to take one from in Orlando all the way up to New York or Washington, D.C. Yeah. But to do it and not just sit in a regular seat, to actually have a berth or a private cabin was 4 times the price of all of us just flying up there. Well, it was outrageous. And I thought, why are you going to get people to take a train? How are you going to do that if it costs so damn much and it takes 3 times as long?
Well, this is the thing. In Australia, when I was a kid, you'd go from Melbourne to Sydney in 8 hours by the train on a sleeper. Now, because we decided we were not to have Australian engines and trains anymore. We were going to import these amazing British ones, which were so cool, right? So instead of being 8 hours, it's now 10 hours. It's slower, right? All right. And you can't have a sleeper anymore because the British didn't think of that, right? So
just sit in a chair.
Sit in a chair for 10 hours. Really?
Oh, well, it reclines proper.
I'm sorry. No, my idea, when I was a child, when you caught a train, okay, this, am I old and fucked or what? But the whole idea was, you got on the train, you went to the station, the grandparents waved you goodbye, you hopped on, you had a sleeper, you were 8 years old, but you still walked and dressed for dinner to the dinner compartment where you had a meal. You came back to your sleeper, right? And not only that, you had to dress properly. You had to just go in your pajamas. You had to wear a tie on, right? You had to put a tie and stuff. You were going to Sydney. You had to dress.
Oh.
Am I so old and fucked that the world is just like...
Well, we're all old. But
the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, nobody cares about... style anymore or dressing for dinner. We talked about the fact that both of our families seem to have had an excessive level of expectation for us when it came to manners and just basic generalities in the family, I feel like. And again, I'm not explaining this well because I've had too much to drink, but we had my grandfather's family and my father's family as a result were required to dress for dinner. Now, his family, my father's family, he was the son of an Episcopal priest. They lived in nice homes because they were the rectory, but they weren't rich or anything. Everything they had came from the people donating to the church. I didn't realize, I think I've said this before, that my family was a bunch of grifters until I was older. That, every time my grandparents took me to Disney World, it was because people from the church had given money in the collection plate.
They were related
that
to
was
Eric
horrifying. No, they were
Eric,
literally just.
I believe Eric has been doing something along these lines lately. But anyway,
they have their things, and I didn't realize that my grandfather's profession was literally, "Please give us money because Jesus wants to love you." Yeah, I didn't get that. So,
give us money or Jesus won't love you.
Well,
that's more.
Yeah, well, not necessarily.
Well, there's clearly a huge difference between, what do you call it? Is it Episcopalian? What's it called?
Episcopalian.
Episcopalian.
Yeah,
okay.
Anglican and Catholic.
Okay.
It's
In Australian, the same church is called Church of England or Anglican.
Yeah,
right?
and in Britain, it is.
But however, that money is still run through the royal family. You can't just. It's run by the Queen of England. You can't just do what you want with that money. You can't just take that money in and go on a holiday. That's all got to be accounted for.
The Church of England actually disowned the American Episcopal Church because we allowed marriages and also female priests.
Are you fucking kidding me? When was that?
A few years ago. It was mostly about
but the Church of England...
It was mostly about gay marriage. It was mostly about the fact that the American Episcopal Church allows gay marriage, and the Church of England said, no.
But the Church of England supports gay marriage and
now,
female priests.
But
they did that 10 years ago. Oh, so it must have been a while ago then. It must have been a while ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay,
yeah, I'm old.
okay.
Yeah. This is happening.
Don't worry. Don't worry. My daughter. Don't worry. Do you know? And hey, Tim, please support me on this. All right.
His family were like people in Virginia, North Carolina.
My daughter says to me, it's been like I said, what? No, the law's not. Yeah. Did you know the law changed 5 years ago? What? Really?
Well,
when? What?
Well, yeah. Well, my grandfather's family, if he put both of his fork and knife down at the dinner table, they removed his plate. That meant he was finished. They had very strict rules. You know, we were talking about table manners and such. So, yeah, they had strict rules basically because of where he had come from, which you guys have New South Wales. His family was actually from South Wales. So...
I still remember when the dinner was put in front of you. Like, if it was an Asian meal, if you can't use the chopsticks, then you don't eat. And if you don't eat, and then you go to bed hungry. Well, sorry, that's the way it was.
Didn't you have something? Yeah, Tim had an essay or something in college where he talked about how everybody should learn to use chopsticks.
Tim, go for it. Tim, please go for it.
Tell us about your essay.
Well, I mean, I've largely forgotten. It was more about race relations than anything else. So just the simplicity of of learning another culture, learning how to use chopsticks. If everyone would learn to eat with chopsticks, you'd have a better understanding of the people throughout the world. It was a loose association, but yeah.
It's a little bit like, what is the favourite meal of Australians? It's Asian. Know. It's Chinese. It's Chinese.
It is not Vegemite. No one's favourite meal is Vegemite. Don't ever say that again.
That's all I got for them.
I'm sorry. You know what? I'm going to overrule you here, Irish. Tim is right. It is Vegemite. Vegemite. You do not realise how much we love Vegemite. It's not like Vegemite is not a joke. Vegemite was not designed to send out to the world to say, "Hey, make fucking shit of Australians for this shit food." Right? We really do eat this shit. We make.
I sent you Easy Mac. I understand garbage.
No, wait. I make at least once a month Vegemite pasta. Okay, right. So, like, you do not realise when you sort of say Vegemite, this is fine. This is like you saying to a Cambodian, "Oh, your religion is so fucking pathetic," right? Right. Like, you don't understand. Vegemite is a cultural thing. It's not a food thing. It's a cultural thing.
You have to develop a taste for it.
Well, okay,
it's like with coffee, okay? I don't like coffee. I don't. I can drink it. I don't like it. The only coffee thing that I've ever loved is tiramisu.
Okay. I'm
That's
sorry.
it. But
no, you're dead. No, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead. Because if you can't drink coffee, you can't eat Vegemite. It's like,
that's the thing. It's too strong of a flavor for me. What it reminded me of is when I was a kid, my mother used to give me Flintstone vitamins, okay? And they were these chewable vitamins shaped like the Flintstones. You know those characters from cartoons? Do you know that?
Kind of, yeah, I think,
okay, they were like cavemen, but 1950s cavemen, basically.
Yeah.
So they made children's vitamins.
Oh, no, okay, the Flintstones.
So, to me, the Vegemite, and honestly, I have to say, he sent me a big package of amazing things. Tim and I, because Tim gave him the Sheena comic book that was signed. So,
and I've sent my Tim Tams. They're coming.
They're coming, and I'm very excited.
I've been told by Australia Post there are 6 packets coming. They're about 4 to 5 days away. I've been told.
I am very excited about that.
And I threw some double chocs in there as well. So,
oh my gosh. You're going to make me fat. Okay, so the thing is that we got the Vegemite because you said that whole amazing package.
I'm really sleeping.
Oh my gosh. Everything in it was wonderful. Honestly, everything except the Vegemite. So here's the thing.
Oh, for fuck's sake, that's our national culture.
I know, and I adore you all. And let me tell you something. What it reminded me of is if somebody, because I smelled it. And what it reminded me of is somebody had taken, here's the thing about the Flintstone vitamins.
It's beer.
You would take the Flintstone vitamins.
It's beer. We drink beer.
Warren.
We live on beer. It's beer.
Warren.
It's beer. Have you watched The Simpsons? Have you ever watched The Simpsons?
Settle down.
Can I have a glass of tea? We've had beer. No,
coffee.
Tea. Beer.
Yeah,
tea, beer.
No,
it's
coffee. Okay, but I get that. Okay, but here's the thing. To me, what it reminded me of is if my mother had taken, or I had taken, a bunch of the Flintstone vitamins and soaked them in water until they were mush, and then put them on toast. That's sorry.
No, it's just,
it literally is the exact same flavor and scent.
Okay.
Am I wrong? No, wait, Tim.
Well,
am I wrong?
I don't know. I don't draw the correlation with Flintstone vitamins.
Because
to
your
me,
mother didn't give you Flintstone vitamins.
Well, to me, no, I have Flintstone vitamins. To me, like the Vegemite is kind of like the Australian Spam in a way. And I'm
no
sure they have
spam either. No.
But spam. But the world loves spam. That's not even like the world loves spam. No, bullshit. Ask the Korean or a Hawaiian what they think about spam. They make fucking spam sushi, for fuck's sake. I mean, right? They love spam, right? I mean, no, no. My argument is that it's a bit like
you gotta breathe. It's upsetting you. I can see.
No. My argument is that I know that none of you like it. All right, I get that. And I'm not even asking any of you to like it. What I'm saying is that just respect it.
Oh,
I'm not asking you to like it, right? It's just like, Vegemite. Like I can take a jar of Vegemite. Not a tablespoon. The big soup spoon, right? I can put a soup spoon into a jar of Vegemite, heaped, and just eat it. And it doesn't worry me at all. All right? Okay.
Wow.
However, I have had 50 years of living on this shit. All right? Okay. So
I get that.
All right. So put it put it into perspective. All I can say is that, for fuck's sake, do you know what? As an Australian, I spend my life living in your culture, in an American culture, right?
Please don't do that.
What about Koala Blue?
Okay, I take Koala Blue's a bit of it. Okay, all right. But, I live my life with you guys dominating my life because you're so powerful.
That's because I'm so cool. That's what.
Economically, militarily, you just guys dominate the world, right? And
we did.
Okay, no, you still do. You still do actually.
No,
okay, we do.
You still. No, forget
culturally,
Trump.
No.
Okay. Culturally, yeah, there's a problem, but you still do. All right. Okay.
Yes.
But the thing is that sometimes Australians want to say, and there was even a song written about this. What about us? Like,
what about me?
What about me?
Question.
Right? It's like, I did
Warren.
it, but sorry, we're going down such the track in this. And
when you said "What about me," you know what it reminded me of? I worked on a movie here called Walking Across Egypt, and it had Ellen Burstyn in it, and it had Mark Hamill in it, who I got to run lines with, which was amazing.
Oh, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, Judge Reinhold was also in it.
Use the force. Use the force.
Yeah, use the force. No, he didn't say that. Maybe he does. In the new ones, which I pretend never happened. No. But Judge Reinhold was in that show, and literally on the set one day, they had everybody come. They'd been in their trailers for a while. There was some stuff going on with Ellen Burstyn's wig, and they brought her back. They brought everybody to set.
And the show was held. The show was held back because of her wig.
Yeah, because they couldn't get her. So she had to go to set to shoot a scene, and they couldn't get her wig right. So everybody else had to wait. So they finally got it.
This is the thing about American cinema. It's all about how you look rather than how you act.
The wig was wrong. Okay, Warren, listen.
Okay.
So
I'm so anti-American. Sorry.
We better settle down. Don't make me come over there.
So shut up, or I kick your ass out.
Warren, breathe.
All right, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to say something terrible about Judge Reinhold now, so I want you to know.
For any fans of Judge Reinhold.
Oh, yeah, the two that are out there.
You don't know who the fuck he is.
Okay, well, you should look it up, because he's nobody.
Judge Reinhold? Who the fuck is he?
People in America know who he is. He was an 80s movie person. Anyway, he was there, and he wouldn't come to set or go back to his trailer unless he had a chicken sandwich, okay? He said he was hypoglycemic and he needed his chicken sandwich. So in order to get him to set, we basically had to put a chicken sandwich on a stick
for $3
to get him to go.
So sorry, we had a problem with somebody who made a meme because of $3 a day. $3 a day.
Warren,
right?
Cut it out. I'm going to try to tell the story without you interjecting.
Sorry. All right. Okay. Sorry.
And because there's a point here I was trying to make about the way you said that, and it wasn't an important point, but now I want to make it.
$3 sandwich.
Yeah. So he had to go to set, and Warren Burstyn came on to set, and her wig was still wrong. So the director said, because you could tell it was a wig. So he said, "Okay, wait. Everybody go back to your trailers for probably 10 minutes, and then we'll all come back." And Judge Reinhold, who an 80s star, turned around to him and said to the first AD, who was a woman named Marty, he said, "But what about me, Marty? What about my needs?"
So that's the what about me story.
That's the what about me story. It was literally about because he had to come back to set because someone's wig was wrong.
For reference, Judge Reinhold is an American star from such 80 cinema classics as Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Fast Times! Oh my God, that movie was okay, can I just say something that we don't want to admit? That was a masturbation movie as every teenager. No, I'm sorry. Tim, I'm sorry.
You know the movie, absolutely.
No, I promise
Tim. So sorry, Tim. Support me here, man. Support me. Was that topless scene? Fast time. Seriously, that's a swimming pool scene. That's a Pornhub level of history. Can we just say that?
I learned a lot about you right now, Warren. Yes. That's what I want to say. Tim, join me, please, Tim. Just forget your life. He's not allowed to say that, don't you know?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to speak about that.
Oh my God, Tim, just fucking come on board. Come on. just Tim.
I think it's time to end all this right now.
Tim, I'll give you a new passport.
I know
it's
Phoebe Cates.
I know it's Phoebe Cates.
Phoebe Cates. Yeah, but Phoebe Cates. Phoebe Cates. Okay, look,
I need to wrap this up now. Phoebe Cates.
It's time, Warren. We're out of time. We have 4 minutes.
Okay. Now we're out of time, and we have to go. And this is such. Can I believe we've actually got to a point where we need to just expand this conversation, but we have to end it.
I said no for this.
She heard Phoebe Cates, and she's like, "It's over. No more.
Okay,
we have to go."
All right. It is what it is. So we're gonna have to end. We're gonna have to end it. Now I'm looking at my watch. I'm wearing the fucking Boulevard Luna. All right.
Ooh, so don't always impress me with your watches. I know.
Don't argue. This is the 2 watches have landed on the moon: the Omega Speedmaster and the Boulevard Luna. And I'm wearing a Boulevard Luna, so don't fucking question my timing. Okay.
No, you know what?
And even though I'm not an American.
He likes the animated watches. What are
those? I do like.
Well,
Well, I mean, those aren't really nice watches. Those are false watches.
Right now, I am wearing the Apollo 15 watch. The Apollo fucking 15 watch. Right? So, fuck you all. I'm wearing the Apollo 15 watch. All right?
If you like to see any watch that Warren wears, you can go onto his Twitter account because he puts pictures of them.
No, I don't.
And they're all
No,
magnificent.
I don't. It's on my Instagram account.
He should have
on your Instagram.
He should have a TikTok for his watches.
Yeah, I just opened TikTok.
He should have a TikTok for his TikTok.
What is TikTok? How the fuck is that just people dancing?
It is a video website where people make 3 to 10 second videos, I think. Maybe
15 to 60 seconds.
15 to 60. Okay, 15 to 60 seconds. And they're very clever.
I'm too old for this shit. I'm sorry. I'm Black American. And I'm going to make a statement. I'm too old for this shit.
Okay, you know what? Right? You got to quit it because I just started a TikTok account and I actually had an idea for one. Tim told me it was really good, so I'm going to do it. And it has
and now I'm suddenly just totally
it includes a watch. It includes a time watch and time period cosplay. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, but no one understands watches. Everyone.
Well, it's not really about the watch per se, but the watch is the entity that changes everything.
You guys have literally 2 seconds but you have to go. So, honestly, Tim, you have really done a work. You've done a work against the clock here. What watch are you wearing right now?
He's not wearing a watch.
Oh my God, Tim! Tim! Ah!
I love watches. At my job, I cannot wear them. It's just it's damaging to the faces of the watches.
No,
with what I do.
No. Fuck me. We're going to change this. All right.
Are you going to give him a job that pays more? Because then maybe
I'm going to tell him what he has to go and spend your guys' collective money on to buy a fucking watch. How can you? A man cannot not wear a watch.
Well, no, he has watches. He can't wear them to work.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I love watches. Why? I have many. I have pocket watches. I have wrist watches. I love watches, but wearing them to work, in the job that I do, sometimes I use my hands a lot. I end up scratching the face or.
He's going to destroy them if he does.
And he has
destroyed several of them since he started years ago, basically.
All right. And we have to end the show now when I really want to say, for Christ's sake, I could go for another hour. But anyway, we have to...
This is terrible.
We have to...
Guys, it's it.
All right. We have to do what we have to do. So, anyway, we've hit the 2-hour mark. We agreed that was it. It was 2 hours
today. Yeah.
So
because I had some. So yeah.
Honestly,
it's my mother's fault. I don't want to discuss it.
I'll be honest with you. I want to talk to Tim for another hour, but anyway, we're not even going to go down that path.
Maybe next week I'll let him know.
Next week, all right. So anyway, this is our show, and look, I hope you enjoyed it. Is there anything we want to say? Oh, for fuck's sake, we have to say. I was about to say, we have to say what the web address is, but if you listen to this, you know what the web address is anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant. Is that...
I'm sorry, I was joking. I didn't hear a damn thing you said.
Really?
No.
No.
Yeah, I don't know what's making me cough,
honestly, I just fucking phoned it in. You know what I mean? I'll just say, I'm not here. Just phone it in.
Yeah. So...
Yeah,
the website is thesaintsmartini.com.
Oh, really? Wow. Oh, my God. And, God. Someone was not actually phoned it in. Okay. Yeah, all right.
I'm ignoring whatever you said. I don't know.
I'm just the fucking have fun, laugh at the shit with this show. But you know what? Okay, I'll just say this. There are some people on this show who are really political. There are some people on the show who are really funny. And I'm just saying, I'm going to make the fun of it. You know what I mean?
We'll just leave it up to everybody to decide.
You know what? Not everyone has to be an anti-fascist just to fucking have fun. You know what I mean? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, my attitude is that, you know what? If you turn... hey, here's what I'm saying. If you turn one vote, you think that's bullshit. But one vote is 20, is 50. Is like
I agree.
Right?
I
agree. It is what... Right. I'm here to support you.
Be a good person.
Right? So, I don't control the fascist world. I live in Australia.
Thank God.
It's all
if you did, I'd be pissed, man, because you'd be fucking it up.
Right. So you guys are doing what you are doing. I'm here to support you. So anyway, here you go. Rant it out.
What?
Sorry, I meant give you all your email addresses. Is what I meant. Or your Twitter addresses. Or I just said it's a bit like me go. It's like the stripper. It's like I'm the stripper with the towel going. Woohoo! It's out there, right? And you should watch this shriveled dit on stage. How many girls have told me?
Down.
I'm sorry, but how many girls have told me they've gone to stripper clubs where they go all through these fucking 20 minutes of where they've been so roused sexually up, and this guy comes up on stage and pulls this fucking sheet across to an fucking unsexual slut. I'm sorry, it just makes me laugh. It fucking makes me laugh. It's so funny. I'm sorry. Oh, God. I'm sorry. It's so funny.
Warren.
But I digress.
That's my whole...
I'm sorry.
But I digress.
God. I just lost it. All right. So, all right. So anyway, we're doing Big Papa.
Okay. So, I have to go watch Hamilton. That's what I have to do. So, I promise.
All right, so I'll say what.
You are not. Don't lie to me. Okay.
No, I'll tell you what. So Tim and I. I'll tell you what. You can go. Tim and I will stay on there. Can we do that?
That is absolutely not going to happen.
Okay. All right.
I'm just going to say that right now. He's a special intermediate guest, but he is not the co-host. So, no.
It's all I tell you is already 20 minutes over our fucking time.
I know.
Special guest appearing again next week.
Yeah. Right, so, it's 5 minutes over. Okay.
All right. So we are going to say, I'm just fucking around. You have to, no one, until I just say this, no one fucking listening understands that I'm just fucking around. No one understands. Anyway, all right. They just don't realise that I'm just Australian and I like the fun that we can fuck around. That's what the country is built on. Right? Okay. All right. So, all right. We're going to say goodbye.
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 No,
and also,
yes, I'm singing goodbye because I'm.
You're going to go watch Hamilton.
We're going to watch
He's
Hamilton.
getting in the mood.
I just taught you about fucking Puccini can't be fucking altered, and you complained about
Puccini,
this. Anyway,
right. He's no Puccini.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we are going to pause it, and we're going to say goodbye. They've already said goodbye.
Goodbye.
If you have anything to say, or or any comments for the show, good or bad, we don't care.
All right.
If you would like us to focus, we will not.
You're not on. You're not on me. Okay.
If you would like them to focus, they will not.
Okay. Can I just say this? I'll just finish the show in the Australian term. Cheers, mate. Fuck you. Up your. No, you just
Irish. I'm just going to say sláinte. So, yeah.
No. You have to, all right, I will say it again, and then we'll end. All right. Here we go.
Okay.
A true Australian ending.
Go ahead.
Fuck you. Up your ass.
My favorite. Oh.
Cheers, mate.